If you love powerful Western stories filled with courage, heartbreak, and redemption, make sure to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share this video with your friends. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps us bring more untold legends of the Wild West to light. Now sit back, take a deep breath, and imagine the crackle of a campfire under the endless desert sky, because tonight we ride into one of the most haunting tales ever told. Let's get started. Wanditsutotu. The sun sank low over the red horizon, casting long shadows across the Arizona desert as Jake Holloway rode his old horse, Dusty, down toward the river bend. He wasn't searching for anything that evening, just trying to outrun the silence that followed him wherever he went. The wind whispered across the sagebrush, carrying with it the smell of rain and dust. As he rode along the narrow trail, something caught his eye. A dark shape tangled among the reeds near the water's edge. His instincts made him pull the reins tight. The horse stopped, snorting softly. Jake swung down from the saddle, boots sinking into the wet clay. The shape didn't move. At first, he thought it was a coyote or a deer caught in the current. But when he stepped closer, his breath caught. It was a woman. Her skin was pale beneath the grime. Her long black hair spread across the water like spilled ink. She was half submerged, her arm twisted under her. He knelt beside her, his heart pounding as he turned her gently onto her back. Mud streaked her face, her lips blue with cold. For a moment, he feared she was gone. Then he saw it. A faint movement. The soft rise and fall of her chest. Jake exhaled sharply. "You're alive," he murmured, reaching for his canteen. He poured water carefully over her lips, and after a moment she swallowed weakly, coughing as life sputtered back into her lungs. Her eyes fluttered open, dark and filled with fear. She tried to move, but her legs remained still. She looked up at him as though seeing a ghost. "Easy now," he said quietly. "You're safe. You're all right." But the look in her eyes said she didn't believe him. She whispered something in a language he didn't understand. Apache, maybe. Her voice trembled, her hand clawing at the air, as if reaching for someone who wasn't there. Jake hesitated, then wrapped his coat around her shoulders. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said softly, lifting her carefully. She was light, too light, the way a person gets after days without food or hope. The river gurgled behind them as he carried her toward his horse. The sky had turned crimson, and the coyotes had begun to cry from the hills. He knew he couldn't leave her here. He laid her across the saddle, holding her close as he mounted up. The ride home was slow and silent. The stars began to pierce the purple sky, and the desert air grew colder with each passing mile. The woman's head rested against his chest, her breath shallow. Once, she tried to speak again, her words soft and broken, but he couldn't make sense of them. He only tightened his grip around her and whispered, "You're going to be all right, I promise." His voice cracked slightly, because promises like that didn't come easy to a man like him. When he reached his cabin, a lonely shack tucked beneath the canyon cliffs, the moon had risen high. He carried her inside, laying her gently on the bed. She shivered violently, so he stoked the fire until flames danced along the walls. Her dress was torn and soaked through. He found a knife, cut away the wet leather, and saw the wound that had ruined her. A deep scar across her lower back, the kind that paralyzes a body from the waist down. His gut clenched. Whoever left her there knew she couldn't walk again. He worked quickly, cleaning the wound with whiskey, wrapping it with strips of linen torn from an old shirt. She groaned in pain, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know," he murmured. "I know it burns, but it's the only way." He stayed beside her until her breathing steadied, and exhaustion pulled her into uneasy sleep. Then he sat near the fire, staring into the flames. The night outside was still, broken only by the whisper of wind against the door. He'd seen death in many forms before, but never something so cruelly deliberate. By morning, the woman stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings, the wooden walls, the small table, the rifle above the door. Jake was sitting nearby, sipping coffee. When he noticed her watching, he smiled faintly. "You're awake." "That's good." She tried to speak, but her throat was dry. He poured water into a cup and held it out. She drank carefully, eyes never leaving his face. "Who? You?" she asked weakly. "Name's Jake Holloway," he said. "You're safe now." She looked down at her legs, tried to move, but nothing happened. Her face crumpled. "Easy," he said gently. "You're hurt bad. Takes time to heal." But he knew the truth. Her legs would never move again. She seemed to know it too. "My people," she whispered, voice trembling. "They leave me." Jake frowned. "Your people?" She nodded slowly. "Apache? They say I am cursed. Spirit broken. They take me to river. Leave me to die." Her eyes filled with tears. Jake's jaw tightened. He'd heard of tribes abandoning the wounded, believing them lost to dark spirits. But seeing it, the pain carved into her face, made his stomach twist. He shook his head. "They were wrong. You're no curse. You're a fighter, that's what you are." She stared at him, confused by his kindness. "Why you help?" she asked softly. "Because someone should have," he said. "And maybe because I know what it's like to be left behind." She didn't understand all his words, but something in his voice made her lower her eyes. He offered her a small bowl of broth. She ate slowly, the warmth returning a little color to her cheeks. It was the first time she'd felt human hands that didn't hurt her. Days passed. Jake tended to her wounds, made her a small chair out of scrap wood so she could move around the cabin. He fixed the roof leak, kept the fire going through the cold nights. Sometimes she'd watch him quietly, as if trying to understand why a stranger would bother saving her. Once, while he was mending a saddle, she said softly, "You good man." He smiled faintly. "I ain't been called that in a long while." She tilted her head. "You fight before?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah. Fought men for causes that didn't last." She understood that kind of loss. Each evening, when the desert turned gold, Jake would read old books aloud. She couldn't follow all the words, but she liked the sound of his voice. Sometimes she'd hum songs in Apache, haunting melodies that drifted through the cabin like wind through canyon stone. One night, as the firelight flickered, she looked at him and said, "You lonely man." He chuckled softly. "Guess you could say that." She studied him. "You help me. Maybe you help yourself." He looked into her eyes and said quietly, "Maybe I am." That night, neither of them spoke again, but silence felt different. Taya, that was her name, began to regain strength. Though her legs remained still, her spirit grew brighter. Jake admired her resilience. He'd seen strong men crumble with less. She learned how to use the chair he'd built, learned to cook small meals, even teased him once about his burnt beans. He laughed for the first time in years. "You're getting bold," he said. "Maybe soon you'll be running this place." She smiled. "Cannot run," she said, tapping her leg gently. "But maybe roll fast." Her laughter was like sunlight through the storm. It warmed him more than whiskey ever had. The days melted into weeks, and with each sunrise, Jake found himself drawn closer to her. He didn't know when the shift happened. Maybe the night she told him about her mother, or the morning she thanked him for keeping her alive. She spoke often of spirits, of dreams where she saw her ancestors calling her name. Jake didn't believe in ghosts or gods, but when she spoke, he listened. Her world was full of meaning. His had long been empty. Somewhere in the space between their differences, they built a fragile peace neither had known before. One cold evening, as the rain tapped against the window, Taya asked softly, "Why you live alone?" Jake was silent for a moment. "Lost everyone I cared about," he said. "War took some. The world took the rest." She turned toward him, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "Heart still beat?" she asked. He smiled sadly. Yeah, I reckon it does, she nodded. Then not lost, just waiting. Her words hung in the air like a prayer. Jake didn't know how to answer. He poured 2 cups of coffee, handed one to her, and said quietly, "Maybe you're right." When dawn came, he found her outside the cabin, wrapped in his old blanket, watching the sunrise. The desert glowed with soft light, the air crisp and still. "Beautiful," she whispered. Every day, new fire in sky. Jake stood beside her. "Never gets old," he said. She smiled faintly. "In my tribe, morning means thanks." "I thank you, Jake." He looked at her, surprised by the sincerity in her tone. "Don't thank me, Taya. Thank the river for letting me find you." She shook her head. "River wanted me gone. You bring me back." Her words hit deeper than she knew. As winter settled in, they built routines. He hunted rabbits and quail, while she tanned hides and made small tools from bone. Her hands, once weak, grew steady again. Sometimes she'd sing while she worked, low, rhythmic songs that made the cabin feel alive. Jake caught himself humming along, though he didn't know the words. At night, they'd share stories by the fire. He told her about the cities far east, about trains and machines. She listened with wonder. "Your world's so loud," she said. "Ours quiet." "Maybe too quiet," he nodded. "Maybe both kinds break a person different ways." Taya began to ask questions about the land. About the men who came to take it. Jake told her the truth. How greed drove them. How blood had stained every river and canyon. She listened silently, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "Now you save one Apache. Maybe balance a little." He chuckled. "I doubt I'm changing much." She shook her head. "To me, you change everything." He didn't respond, but something in his chest shifted. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost wandering a graveyard. He felt like a man again, alive, needed. But peace in the West never lasted long. One afternoon, as Jake chopped wood outside, he spotted smoke rising far off in the distance. Campfire smoke, not from any settler. His gut tensed. The Apache were near. He knew if they found out a white cowboy was sheltering one of their outcasts, things could turn bloody fast. That night he told Taya what he saw. She stared into the fire, her face pale. "They come," she whispered. "They not want me live." Jake tightened his jaw. "Then they'll have to come through me first." And she saw he meant every word. That night, she couldn't sleep. Jake heard her whispering quietly, words in Apache that sounded like prayer. When he asked what she was saying, she said softly, "I ask spirits to let you live." He smiled sadly. "Don't worry about me, Taya. I've been dead a long time." She turned to him, eyes fierce. "No, River give me life. Maybe now I give you." Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't. And for the first time, Jake realized that saving her hadn't been charity. It was redemption. He needed her just as much as she had needed him. As dawn approached, he looked out across the desert. The world was quiet again, too quiet. The river shimmered silver beneath the first light. He turned back toward the cabin where Taya slept peacefully. Her hair spread across the pillow like black silk. A strange calm filled him. Whatever storm was coming, he'd face it. Because somewhere between mercy and fate, the cowboy who'd given up on everything had found something worth fighting for again.